Okay, welcome back to PT Meal TV. This is episode 3. Thank you for watching. So, today is October 10, 2020, and today I wanted to make a video uh, because today is World Mental Health Day, and in observance to that day, I naisip ko, I thought of making this a video. I had a training earlier, and I thought that I wanted to share. Thought of sharing the some of the concepts that I learned from that training earlier. So just to give you a background, I started a new job. I am now in a maximum security psychiatric hospital as a physical therapist. So you would expect that the seminar was about how to handle psychiatric patients. So, um, yeah. So here, this is just gonna be quick. Gusto ko lang ma-introduce sa inyo yung mga concepts na natutunan ko. And because, like Dr. Mike Chua said, in order for you to uh, retain things, right? You teach it, you share it. So here, I'm sharing these information to you guys. I am by no means expert in psychiatry or psychology, but these I think are something that siguro magandang matutunan or magandang malaman or familiarize. So there, let's start. So the topic is the cost of caring, um, or the burden of caring in our job. This is not just for physical therapists, but for anyone who is providing care. So anyone in healthcare, anyone who is a caregiver, or anyone in that realm, providing like the nurse, doctors, policemen. All right, so there. Empathy is feeling with that person, right? Yun ang trabaho natin as physical therapist. We have to put ourselves in their shoes, or any caregiver or any healthcare professional, care professional. We put ourselves in their shoes and try to understand them. We're not there to solve their problems. We're not there to give solution to whatever they're venting out or ranting, but us to understand that they have some experience. Uh, it may be traumatic. Uh, that acknowledgement is already trying to be emphatic and trying to understand where they're coming from. So, so I mentioned trauma, right? So the one of the core values or core concepts in the facility that I am working here now is being a trauma informed care, providing informed care, sorry, trauma informed care or approach. So what is this? So it understands and considers the pervasive nature of trauma and promotes environments of healing and recovery. It is also an approach in the human service field that assumes that an individual is more likely than not to have a history of trauma. It recognizes the presence of trauma symptoms and acknowledges the role trauma may play in an individual's life, including service staff. So, bakit natin kailangang malaman ang history ng trauma ng pasyente? In a psychiatric setting like mine, it's very important because uh, trauma might have played a role in what their behaviors are now, in what their personalities are now, on what conditions they have now. Um, that would affect the care level of care, because one thing as a physical therapist, uh, we are more like physical, diba? We try to approach them, but persons who have undergone trauma may have boundaries issues, may have issues with authority, may have issues with language and how you speak to them. So uh, that really affects or impacts how you're going to provide your care. In other settings of physical therapy, pwede nating maisip na how about uh, a person who had a stroke. Sabihin na it's non-traumatic, di ba? According to what we've learned, but that experience may not be a traumatic experience for us or how we define stroke, but the experience can be traumatic for a person. Di ba? Trauma is very subjective. It depends on how the person perceives it. So a stroke can be traumatic for a person. Of course, traumatic brain injuries or traumatic spinal cord injuries may be traumatic as well, caused by the mechanism of injury may be traumatic. Pediatric cases may have some trauma there, domestic violence, sexual abuse. In pelvic floor rehabilitation, of course, you would be mindful if the patient has some um, sexual problems or issues. So, and trauma is not just physical, it can also be emotional. It can, as I've mentioned, sexual. So, it can be assault, trauma, physical, emotional, sexual, and other things, mental. So, we have to recognize that what the patient and client's symptoms now may have been contributed or been caused or there might be some factors from their past that contributed to what they're feeling now. So in order to provide a more specific care to a patient, we must be aware or mindful if there are events in their past that uh, are traumatic. So, but we are not going to talk about the trauma of the patient, but how we take it as a physical therapist, as a caregiver. We mentioned earlier, we talked about uh, empathy, right? So, empathy. So, dealing with persons or clients, patients who have history of trauma. Sometimes it rubs on us, diba? Minsan, as being emphatic, we place ourselves in their shoes. And minsan, sobrang na-absorb natin siya, it affects our psyche, our the way we the way we work. So we are going to talk about different concepts. Ito yung mga natutunan ko kanina. So I wanted to share this to you guys. So first concept is burnout. So we're familiar with this. It's a physical and emotional exhaustion associated with low job satisfaction, feeling of powerlessness, and being overwhelmed with work. So alam natin to, parang toxic trabaho, toxic yung boss mo, toxic yung mga katrabaho mo, ang dami mong pasyente, ang dami mong pinapagawa, paperwork, ano pa, meron ka pang mga estudyante kailangang i-handle, uh, na na-overwhelm ka na, tapos mababa sweldo, pagod na pagod ka, parang wala kang magawa. So these factors would cause burnout. Next is compassion fatigue or previously known as a secondary post-traumatic stress. So ito naman yung it's a physical and emotional erosion associated with inability to refuel and regenerate. Ito naman yung mas matindi kaya sa burnout na it's hard for you to recuperate from that event. Pwedeng this can be from a specific person or pwedeng cumulative then from different persons na na-absorb mo yung negativity, yung history of trauma. So nakukuha mo siya. So we're gonna give examples later. Then next one is vicarious traumatization or vicarious trauma. So ito naman mas matindi. It's a permanent change according to the definition in change in cognitive framework or frame of reference associated with your altered fundamental beliefs, worldview, spirituality, and interpersonal relationship. This is so severe that how you think about things and your perception about things have been changed of those cumulative um, experiences with your patients. So for compassion fatigue and vicarious trauma, sometimes they are seen together, sometimes separate, but there's like a thin line there. But burnout is really separate from them because for burnout, it's easily solvable. So once you change your job, once you get lesser load, once you get like higher pay, nawawala na yung burnout mo. Na-address agad yung cause ng burnout. But with compassion fatigue and vicarious traumatization, masyado kasing mahaba or nagpatong-patong na uh, yung trauma in your mind that it had some effects on you already. So, for example, um, you're handling patients who are, shall we say, um, o siguro sabihin natin palliative care. Okay. Tapos, you've handled so much patients with palliative care, physical therapy na ano lang, for palliative care, ease the pain and suffering of the patient. Tapos you've seen a lot of deaths already in your practice na parang it already changed how you perceive death, how you perceive aging, paganda. I remember there was a time na I've seen a lot of um, patients with dementia. Uh, when I was in home health, now there was at one point I came back to my car and I just suddenly broke into tears, as in outright hagulgol na hindi ko maintindihan kung bakit. I think that's because ang dami kong nakikitang dementia, patients with dementia na I thought na parang ayokong umabot sa ganong point, ayokong tumanda, takot akong tumanda mag-isa or tumanda kaming dalawang mag-asawa na kami lang tapos pareho akong may dementia na nakakalungkot. So it was hard to feel that way kasi di ba you were caring for them, like I see them twice a week tapos a lot of patients like that, so parang nagbago yung pagtingin ko sa pagtanda. Before sabi ko ay gusto ko yung tatanda ako na mamatay lang ako na or matutulog lang ako ganun tapos very active ako in my older years, pero seeing patients like that, parang it changed how I perceive things. Compassion fatigue naman, for example, you've been seeing a lot of patients with behavior. Sige, let's stick with the dementia. Patients with dementia. Um, ito yung mga wanderers or patients who are non-verbal pero may mga strength. Tapos, you've been so tired seeing those patients that you don't have that energy anymore to deal with your own parents or relatives na have dementia. So parang ubus na pagod na wala ka nang maibigay. Yun yung compassion fatigue. Pwedeng hindi pa nagbabago yung tingin mo uh, uh, sa aging, pero pagod na pagod ka lang. Pwedeng wala kang vicarious trauma, you're just fatigued. Pero pwede ka rin magkaroon ng vicarious trauma if you already your views or your perceptions or your interpersonal relationships ay nagbago na. So yun yung thin line between compassion fatigue and vicarious trauma. So, ano nga ba yung signs and symptoms na tong mga to? So, as I've mentioned, exhaustion, pagod ka na, you would be irritable, you would present with mental and physical health problems. Parang may flu ka na, masakit na ulo mo lagi, lack of sleep, feeling of hopelessness and inadequacy na parang wala ka na magawa. Sometimes you turn to substance abuse kasi hindi maganda yung coping mechanism mo and you experience client's trauma. This three: experience client's trauma, persistent arousal, avoidance, in or numbing. Sorry, it's numbing. Ito, you feel that this can be felt in the compassion fatigue, na you want to avoid the things that are triggering you. Sometimes numb ka na you don't feel anything anymore, or you experience the trauma of your patient. So kunwari, the trauma is uh, uh, na-aksidente siya sa motorsiklo. Parang takot ka na magmotorsiklo. So parang ganon. And last one is for the vicarious trauma, the gradual change in beliefs and worldviews. So unti-unti na nagbabago ang pananaw mo sa bagay-bagay sa mundo. Yung, yung dating optimistic ka, naging pessimistic ka na. Yung dating uh, you see good in people, lahat ngayon skeptic ka na sa mga tao na feeling mo they're out trying to get you, di ba? Hindi naman bordering to paranoia, pero yung nagbago, yung unti-unti na nagbabago yung pananaw mo sa buhay. So what are the factors that may contribute to uh, compassion fatigue and vicarious trauma? What is your current situation now? Ikaw ba yung marami ka namang naranasang stress ngayon sa work mo, sa house? Then what is your personality? Ikaw ba yung tao nagkikimkim? Ikaw ba yung taong outgoing? Do you share your problems? Do you take it in with you? Do you take it at home? Do you leave it in the workplace? What are your personal experiences, your history? Did you have a similar experience with your patient? Kung that person was sexually abused, were you able to relate? Yung ba naramdaman mo or it was the patient was verbally or physically abused? Nakaranas ka rin ba ng ganun? What is your coping style? Do you binge watch? Do you let it go by shouting, music, talking to your friends? And another factor is if you're caring for undervalued population, these are like the homeless, incarcerated, siguro yung mga elderly na hindi na pinapansin ng society. Stressful work environment, of course, this would contribute to your to possibly the compassion fatigue and vicarious trauma. And lastly, dealing with stressful patients. These patients may have, as I mentioned, history of trauma. That's why they become stressful or toxic. I remember just sharing stressful work environment. I remember before that I had a work job before that it became so stressful that I told myself that I have to get out of this um, work because I don't want to reach that point that I would hate what I do because I love physical therapy. And I don't want to get into that point that I begin to resent physical therapy or begin to resent my patients. So there, if you're at that point that you're already unhappy and you think it's a mix of all factors, I would suggest you get out of there, find a workplace where you feel valued, you feel happy, or you feel content, no? Because you don't want to reach that point that you're gonna hate being a physical therapist or what you do. Okay, so lastly, uh, management strategies. How would you manage uh, or cope, prevent, or reduce the effects of these? First is social support. Uh, Support from your supervisor, support from your colleagues. Uh, Tell them kung ano yung nararamdaman mo. Be vocal. Uh, if they need to loosen up the load or decrease your load or decrease your productivity or what their demands are, tell them. Or if they provide counseling services, ask them. Another social support, your significant others, your family, your loved ones, your partner, your husband, your wife. These people would help you go through uh, what you're feeding, you know, so that you don't dwell on the trauma, the bad experiences of your patients. Second is self-awareness and mindfulness, being aware of what you're feeling in your emotions, self-monitoring, do journaling. Today, I handled this patient. This is what I felt. Why do I feel that way? Is it all right? Is it something that I should dwell on? Yung mga ganon. Again, be aware of your emotions and your behavior. Try to reflect. What is my core belief? What is my principles? Don't forget that. Make sure to write it down para hindi magbago yung perception mo sa mundo just because of the perception of other patients. And meditation, uh, being one with your thoughts, being able to uh, be aware of what you're thinking yourself. And lastly, have a variety of interests. Continuing education, professional education, know more about the topic. Try to learn more about trauma-informed care, about psychiatry or psychology, about dealing with patients. Uh, yeah, you should have activities outside work environment, but you don't get cooped up with the topics of work. Um, you go with your friends, diba? You hike, you go to the beach, you do things that you like doing. And lastly, self-care. Make sure to take care of yourself. If you want to pamper yourself with a massage, on a spa, uh, have your hair cut, dye your hair, things that uplifts your spirit. So there. So these are strategies to cope, to manage, to reduce or prevent uh, compassion fatigue and and vicarious traumas. But at the end of the day, think of it like this way. In order to take care of others, you should be taking care of yourself first. You know, um, pwede kasing you're a caregiver, pwedeng caregiver, and you think that it's your responsibility to take care of your loved ones. That's okay. That's noble. But again, in order to give, you should have it first. Kung wala ka nang maibigay, ano pa, di ba? So there should be some like a time for you to rest, respite care about that. Get someone else to give you a day off. Well, to give yourself time to recuperate. It may take some time. You may take some time. That's okay. No one is gonna judge you for that. Um, take care of yourself. So these are my references. Um, if you want to visit them, I'm gonna post it in the description as well. And there, that's me. I used to work in home health, in a skilled nursing facility, and now I'm in a maximum security psychiatric facility. So there, if you want to reach out, if you want to talk, um, exchange topics, exchange ideas, I would love to do that with you because I'm just learning this stuff. Pero I'm excited with to see psychiatric patients or patients with psychiatric problems, mental illnesses. So if you're in that field as well, sige, usap tayo. I love to throw ideas. All right. Again, um, today's Mental Health Day, World Mental Health Day. Again, take care of yourself. You won't be able to get something that you don't have. Have a good weekend.